Imagine yourself transported back to the year 2010. You stumble upon a website that offers the most basic information, a contact email and a PayPal button for payments. And thus, the seeds of a revolution were sown.
Talk about the Bitcoin.
We have something called the Bitcoin.
What is Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is brilliant.
Bitcoin is the world's first cryptocurrency.
That will cure half the problems in the world.
And it works because of the world's first public blockchain network.
And so Bitcoin is the most certain form of money we've ever had.
The lesson of Bitcoin is the best asset. There is no second best asset. Buy Bitcoin, keep buying Bitcoin, don't sell the Bitcoin. Ignore the noise.
This here is fake money. I would never work for this stuff. It's good as toilet paper.
People that use fiat currency as a store of value, there's a name for them. We call them poor.
In January 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto unveiled Bitcoin to the world. The price back then? Bitcoin was worth a mere $0. Fast forward 15 years, and today a single Bitcoin commands $100,000. But here's the kicker: the mystery surrounding Satoshi Nakamoto endures.
One of the biggest mysteries in the technology world is the identity of Satoshi Nakamoto.
In your opinion, who is Satoshi Nakamoto?
Who is Satoshi Nakamoto?
Doesn't want to be known, but if you want to find out.
Origin unknown.
Why did Satoshi leave and what happened to him?
These are questions destined to remain unanswered. Yet, they fuel the ongoing fascination with Bitcoin, even a decade and a half after its inception. To truly understand the soaring fame and allure of Bitcoin, we must journey back to the very roots of our monetary system, back to where it all began. The earliest form of commerce we know was barter, a primitive system used in ancient times. People exchanged goods directly by passing the need for currency. It worked within a small tribe communities, but as society expanded globally, barter became impractical. They snag with barter? Imagine wanting apples, but all you have are pineapples. No deal. Moreover, as trade diversified, determining the relative value of goods became increasingly complex. Thus emerged the concept of a universally accepted trade items. This gave birth to commodity money, where items like shells, tea, tobacco, seeds, and livestock became commodities used for trade. In ancient Rome, soldiers were paid with salt. Why salt? Because salt heals battle wounds and preserves food, a necessary item in a time period without refrigeration. This is where the term salary was born. The value of salt was evident, essential for healing and food preservation. However, other commodities like shells would break, tea would spoil, livestock would perish, and seeds would rot. This demanded a change. It was during the 7th century BC in Lydia, modern-day Turkey, that the first non-metal coins were minted. Initially crafted from silver, later transitioning to gold. These metals were rare, durable, portable, and easy to imprint with value markings. Production was so easy, it led to the introductions of other metals that could be used alongside gold or silver. Interestingly, one of the main factors of the decline of the famous Roman Empire was the massive counterfeiting of its currency. This dubious practice led to severe inflation, diminishing their purchasing power and destabilizing the economy. As a consequence, trust in the monetary system faded, contributing to the empire's gradual decline. With counterfeited coins becoming commonplace, it became essential for a trusted goldsmith to verify their authenticity. Thus, the first banks were born. Merchants would approach the goldsmith to authenticate their coins. In return for a guarantee, the goldsmith would issue a receipt to the merchant and hold the coins. This practice evolved from a mere verification method into a means of payment, known as goldsmith's notes. These notes could be exchanged for gold, establishing a direct link between gold and currency. From then until 1971, currency maintained its ties to the gold standard. The United Kingdom was the global powerhouse. London reigned as the top financial hub until World War I. During this period, major nations agreed to tie their currency's values to a fixed amount of gold. Post-World War I, the UK faced economic challenges, which led to the inflation and the depreciation of the pound. This triggered a period of a global economic instability, ending with the Great Depression of 1929 and the World War II.
After 3 years of intense speculation, Wall Street crashed, and no one was in a position to decide to close the stock market. The president of Wall Street was on vacation in Hawaii.
In 1944, towards the end of World War II, many countries came together to hold a meeting at Bretton Woods in New Hampshire to establish a new global monetary system.
The history that we are now making is not another chapter in the almost endless chronicle of war and strife. Ours is a mission of peace, not just lip service to the ideals of peace, but action, concrete action, designed to establish the economic foundations of peace on the bedrock of genuine international cooperation.
In this landmark agreement, the US dollar became the world's primary currency, valued at $35 per ounce of gold. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, and the World Bank were also established during the same conference. Despite these massive changes, old problems continued to resurface. Years after the war, as countries rebuilt and started competing with the US, international disputes began. Even with the gold standard, the US had the ability to print unlimited dollars. Other nations began to question whether the gold standard was actually being adhered to, noticing the surplus of US dollars circulating worldwide. France led this movement. They loaded a ship of $160 million and requested the US to trade it for gold, considering it a more stable asset than holding US printed dollars. Other nations followed, and the US couldn't fulfill all requests, gradually eroding the dollar-gold standard influence among nations. This gold standard continued to persist until 1971, when President Richard Nixon announced the end of the dollar-gold standard in a televised address.
I have directed Secretary Connally to suspend temporarily the convertibility of the dollar into gold or other reserve assets, except in amounts and conditions determined to be in the interest of monetary stability and in the best interest of the United States.
Since then, our money has lost its tangible backing. The value we place on a piece of paper labeled $10 is based on trust that the US won't inundate us with endless printed dollars, leading to inflation. Yet, that's precisely what has unfolded in recent years. In 2020, we faced an extremely challenging time.
The first case of China's new and deadly coronavirus has been reported here in the U.S.
A virus is spread across the globe, confining people to their homes in quarantine. During this difficult period, certain jobs requiring physical presence were absolutely vital. Meanwhile, millions found themselves unemployed, losing not just their livelihoods, but their primary source of income. Faced with this financial crisis, a crucial question arose. How could these individuals survive without money? To tackle this situation, governments had to take emergency measures.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. The action I am taking will open up access to up to $50 billion of very important and a large amount of money for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against this disease.
They began printing new money notes, intended to provide the basic food, water, electricity, and rent. As a result, money printing spiraled out of control. In 2020 alone, the US printed more money than in the 10 years following the 2008 crisis. Over $3 trillion.
Since mid-March, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet has ballooned from $4 trillion to around $7 trillion.
The infusion of cash into the financial system has renewed concerns that inflation could surge.
Inflation soared so high that even now, in 2024, the Fed is still trying to rein in the money supply. This uncontrolled money, printed during this time, only sped up a process that the world was bound to face sooner or later. Our money loses value a little bit each passing day. We find ourselves having to work harder just to maintain the same purchasing power. And inflation isn't just a problem for the US dollar. Argentina closed out 2023 with inflation at 211.4%, the highest in the 13 years, plunging the country into yet another crisis in the history. Venezuela, amid its worst ever crisis, saw inflation reach 1 million% in 2018.
This is an example of the inflation rates in Venezuela. All of this money is barely $4. You need this amount of money to buy this cup of coffee.
In 2008, Zimbabwe experienced hyperinflation, leading to a 231 million% increase, resulting with banknotes in denominations as high as 100 trillion. The fight against inflation will never cease, and that's not even the main issue. A group of individuals control the world's largest economy, dictating the amount of money to be printed every single day. This group holds immense power over the global economy.
This here is fake money. I would never work for this stuff. It's good as toilet paper.
People that use fiat currency as a store of value, there's a name for them. We call them poor.
Those depending on the dollar are being robbed by central banks and those that receive the newly printed money first.
Why do people still trust the economy we live in today? The answer is easy. From an early age, we were born in a system that teaches us to trust in the government's stability, authority, and credibility. This perspective is instilled by our parents, school, and our community as we grew up. Imagine if our children had a school subject called financial education. Things would likely be different in the world. Today, we face the same issue our ancestors did. Back then, when you had a receipt and you wanted to receive gold, you had to trust the goldsmith to prove that the coins were truly made of pure gold. Nowadays, with the dollar, you still need to trust the goldsmith, which today is the Fed. This required trust is what empowers this group of individuals, making them formidable and respected. The greatest advantage governments have over the population is their control of the economic power source and violence. Money isn't just a piece of paper, it's a fundamental tool we need to fulfill our basic needs, like eating, drinking, having a home, accessing health care, and education. If money didn't exist today, it would be created one way or another, just like in ancient times. Money is the world's universal medium of exchange. Anyone in the world accepts money in exchange for service. That's why countries don't print infinite money. If they did, money would become exactly like the shells, grains, or salt used for the ancient trade. Circulating money must be scarce. Only then does it hold the value we believe it to have. In fact, scarcity is one of money's 5 defining properties. First, divisibility. Divisibility is a key property allowing transactions of varying values. You can buy a $4.50 coffee in the morning and close $1 million home purchase in the afternoon. That's why we have coins, be it 10 cents or 25 cents. They facilitate daily transactional divisibility. Second, durability. Money is worthless if it starts deteriorating after a week, like seeds did in ancient times. Money must be resilient to maintain its utility over the years. Used frequently in millions of transactions through hundreds of hands. Third, recognizability. Identifying money should be easy, which is why all bills have watermarks that are impossible to replicate, verifiable by anyone. Pure gold and silver coins emit a specific sound, quite unlike modern coins of other metals. Hence the term we often hear, sound money.
But that's the same as thermodynamically sound money.
So you need sound money to have a sound world.
All we need is sound money.
We were to move back to a sound money system.
For portability, money must be small and light enough for people to carry in their pockets. Portability helps in handling and trading, especially back when cards and electronic transfers weren't an option yet. Number 5, scarcity. Money must be scarce to hold value. If someone offered me oxygen right now, I wouldn't pay for it because it's all around us and super easy to access for everyone. But if I were trapped in a cave with water rising, I would trade all my money for oxygen because it's more scarce in that environment. This concept is where Bitcoin comes into play, and more importantly, why Bitcoin remains a hot topic and is sought after by investors worldwide.
It is an asset class that protects you.
Before 1971, money was tied to gold. That means there couldn't be more dollars than there was gold. Gold is a scarce resource. You can't just produce it easily. It's time-consuming and very costly. Even if you could, it's hard to find in large amounts on Earth. After we moved away from the gold standard, money lost its anchor. This means if the Fed decides to print millions and millions of dollars, they can without being held accountable. During the 2020 crisis, a ton of money was printed and handed out to people as relief.
After months of delays, disputes, and what seemed like endless debate, Congress finally cleared a $900 billion coronavirus relief package just before midnight last night, and with it, a $1.4 trillion bill that funds the government through the fiscal year.
Another major rescue package for the American people. As our citizens continue battling this coronavirus this holiday season, they will not be fighting alone.
Sounds nice, right? But in reality, a simple theory reveals a different story. Imagine a lemonade stand just open up across the street. It's the only one in town, stocked up on lemons and ice. The folks at the front see the full stock and grab extra cups to take home. The seller notices the high demand and raises price. People in the middle buy fewer cups because of the high cost. The stock needs to sell out by the end of the day. Prices go up again and the last customer in line grabs just one cup, sweating in the heat with prices maxed out. This is the Cantillon effect in action, which states that the first recipient of the new supply of money has an arbitrage opportunity. They can spend money before prices goes up. The new fiat money is created at almost zero cost and given to specific parties first, usually banks. Arbitrage is the act of buying something in one market and simultaneously selling it in another market at a higher price, enabling investors to profit from the temporary difference in cost per share. In real life, the lemonade in this example is money. The closer you are to the issuer of the money, the cheaper you get it for, and the more money you make in the end. The stand, which represents the central bank who prints the money, favors certain businesses, institutions, and people, therefore making the rich even richer. But the government didn't account for one thing. If people got money without having to work every single day for it, why would you go back to work? During the 2020 crisis, this created a labor shortage when things started going back to normal. Why work Monday through Friday for 8 hours each day when you can earn the same amount from free government relief? With so much money flowing out there, the Fed had to raise interest rates. Loans got exponentially more expensive for borrowers, slowing economic growth and pushing more investment into government bonds. The goal? To slow down inflation by reducing money in circulation. When businesses take out fewer loans, their growth slows down. If people prefer investing over spending on goods and services, businesses struggle to stay open. After months or even years of high interest rates, inflation gets back under control. Then, the government can lower interest rates, encouraging spending again. Before 1971, we lived in a capitalism system. But now, what we have is is creditism. Credit plays a central role, fueling investments, spending, and economic activities. Access to credit and managing debt are key parts of the economy. Businesses find it attractive to borrow with lower interest rates. They can hire more, buy new machines, and increase productions. People start spending more, pumping more money into circulation, and as a result, increasing inflation. But if money isn't tied to anything, who's to say the Fed won't print millions or trillions tomorrow? It's all about the public's trust in the currency and their government.
Shows only 26% of Americans trust the government to do the right thing. So we hit the streets and asked you, do you trust the government?
History has shown us that trusting the government isn't always wise. Those who trusted the Roman Empire suffered as it fell due to counterfeit coins. Those who trusted the US government with gold lost out. Those who trusted Venezuela government during the oil boom faced ruin. And that's just one of today's money problems. There's a bigger issue that gets less attention. You're not the true owner of your money. In 1990, Brazil faced an economic crisis with hyperinflation, fiscal imbalances, and raising external debt. Inflation spiraled out of control, reaching triple-digit monthly rates. This turmoil caused deep uncertainty, loss of purchasing power, and financial hardships for Brazilians. Then President Fernando Collor de Mello implemented Plano Collor to combat inflation and stabilize the economy. Policies included freezing financial assets along with the confiscation of a portion of money deposited in bank accounts, especially savings.
Savings account and demand deposit at the bank. Current account. Only 50,000 new cruzados are released. The rest is held at the central bank for a year and a half until July 1991.
Overnight, people who thought they had some wealth lost total access to everything they had managed to save during their lifetime. And although account confiscation may seem like a thing of the past, we've recently seen similar cases. An iconic figure who garnered thousands of fans over the past few years had most of his assets seized due to a criminal investigation. This case occurred in January 2023, where 3.6 million euro in assets and cash were frozen by authorities. Whose assets were this? Andrew Tate.
This Rolls-Royce is among the goods seized by Romanian authorities as part of a criminal inquiry into alleged human trafficking by internet influencer Andrew Tate.
The Matrix has attacked me.
More recently, in Brazil, Minister Alexandre de Moraes sought to suspend Twitter use and ban accounts criticizing the political system, an attack on free speech. The overreach of governments and authority clearly have no boundaries. This highlights that even though we think we own our money, we have no control if things go south. That's why stashing money under the mattress was common practice. Out of these concerns emerged a new currency. Bitcoin was born from this desire for a currency with essential properties and, more importantly, one that's truly ours to own. The first time the internet met Bitcoin was on October 31st, 2008. On this date, the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto published the Bitcoin white paper in a cryptography discussion group. The white paper described the basic principles of Bitcoin, including the details about blockchain technology, proof of work, and the peer-to-peer protocol for financial transactions without need for a central authority. Just 64 days later, on January 3rd, 2009, the first block was mined by Satoshi Nakamoto himself. This block is known as the Genesis block, marking the official birth of Bitcoin. The Genesis blocks had no Bitcoin reward, just a message referring to the 2008 financial crisis and the headline from the Times newspapers of the same day, which read, "Chancellor on the brink of second bailout for banks." 6 days after mining the Genesis block, Block 1 was mined again by Satoshi Nakamoto, January 9, 2009. It's significant because it introduced rewards for miners validating transactions. How much did he receive? 50 Bitcoins. At the time, it was worth nothing, but today, its value at over $3 million. On January 12, the first wallet-to-wallet transactions occurred, shrouded in a mystery that will never be unraveled. Satoshi Nakamoto sent 10 bitcoins to a wallet. Its owner? Halfini.
My name is Hal Finney, and I'm making this recording for a few reasons. Mostly because I want people in the future to be able to hear my voice and maybe something of my story.
Halfini was pivotal in Bitcoin's history. He was among the first to run mining software on his computer, tweeting, "Running Bitcoin," on January 11th, 2009. He was a very talented programmer and advocate for cryptography and privacy. For some reason, Satoshi Nakamoto chose Halfini to participate in the network's first transaction. But what was the reason? To this day, 16 years later, no one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is, whether a person or a group. Many speculate that Satoshi Nakamoto and Halfini are the same person, explaining the first transaction. The truth remains elusive. The last sign we had of this mysterious figure was in April 2011, when Satoshi commented on a Bitcoin forum post. Since then, Satoshi Nakamoto has vanished from the internet, and Halfini passed away in 2014. Maintaining anonymity is one of the Bitcoin's pillars that contributes to its success, ensuring true decentralization without a public face behind the project. The only way to confirm if Satoshi is still active is through wallet movement. That's why, even if a Bitcoin 2.0 or so-called Bitcoin killer emerges, maintaining anonymity, the same supply and 4-year halving, none would achieve the success and adoption Bitcoin has. Bitcoin's current trust was built over years, enduring crisis and rising again. Moreover, Bitcoin's growth has been entirely organic, known as the first cryptocurrency, a symbol of innovation, decentralization, and security.
Bitcoin is the first permanent implementation of this principle we've been refining throughout human history of inviolable property. It actually cannot be violated in any way.
But why is Bitcoin becoming a topic of a discussion among a larger portion of the population and the world's largest governments? As you know already, money has 5 properties: divisibility, durability, recognizability, portability, and scarcity. Bitcoin not only possesses these properties, but many more. Divisibility. Many think you can only buy a whole Bitcoin, but that's not true. One Bitcoin can be divided into 100 million parts, called Satoshis. Durability. Well, there's no question here, Bitcoin is digital. But what if the internet worldwide collapses? Bitcoin is transferable through all our ways of communication. More to come on that later. Recognizability. Thanks to the blockchain, you can view all network transactions to date, even back to the Genesis blocks by Satoshi Nakamoto. Portability. Being digital means you can transfer it anywhere globally, quickly and easily. Scarcity. Remember the Bitcoin white paper? In it, Satoshi Nakamoto said, once a predetermined number of coins have entered the circulation, the issuance will gradually decrease to a complete halt. According to the quantity theory of money, if the money supplies remain stable, money velocity is constant, and the economy is growing, then the currency's price should rise. Unlike fiat currency, the modern-day dollars and coins, Bitcoin has a total supply of 21 million coins. Once reached, no more coins can be created.
No one can produce more than 21 million Bitcoin. Although it's an invention, we've actually discovered something with Bitcoin. We've discovered absolute scarcity for money. So if we're back to those 5 properties of money, in terms of scarcity, Bitcoin is absolute. It's not relative, right? It doesn't change.
Mining will continue for some time. Block 1 rewarded 50 Bitcoins. Due to halving, miners now receive only 3.125 Bitcoins per mined block. While governments print more money every single day, Bitcoin halving, which occurs every 4 years, cuts miner rewards in half, which makes the asset more scarce. Each halving reduces new Bitcoins in circulation up until 2140. Bitcoins is already twice as scarce as gold, and its inflation is less than a quarter of gold's. Despite the total supply being 21 million Bitcoins, the circulation supply is much lower. Many early Bitcoin owners lost access to wallets containing Bitcoins, now forgotten or inaccessible. In fact, I lost some Bitcoins. Bitcoin is the only asset you can take to the grave, accessible only by you if you know your wallet's seed phrase. Let's not forget that Satoshi Nakamoto's estimated 1.1 million Bitcoin in his wallet. Bitcoin is changing lives worldwide. Many countries suffer inflation and government corruption. Most African countries face these issues, with 57% of Africans lacking any bank account. They store money at home, often stolen or devalued by inflation. Zimbabwe once had a currency worth 100 trillion during a crisis year like 2008. It endures political instability and has faced 3 major conflicts in 40 years. Amid this crisis, societies seek alternative local currencies. Somaliland's population uses mobile phones credits for trade. Bitcoin offers a more viable alternative. It's a system disconnected from any country's government. In many African regions, Bitcoin is used for payments in markets, salons, and most businesses. Bitcoin is more than an investment. It's a refuge from government manipulation and greed. Venezuela faces similar problems to Zimbabwe, with a drastic local currency devaluation. Lebanon's economic crisis devalued the local currency by 90% in 2022. Inflation reached 170%, the worst crisis in 150 years, pushing 3/4 of the Lebanese population into poverty.
Lebanon is heaving under a crippling economic crisis that worsens by the day. Lebanese pound has lost 90% of its value, and it's still falling.
Lebanese transactions are mostly cash-based, relying on fluctuating parallel market rates. They monitor mobile apps for rate changes before transactions, with prices shifting hourly. Desperation has led to increase in the bank robberies.
اللي جيت اليوم على بنك لاخذ وديعة اختي اللي عم بتموت بالمستشفى.
As job opportunities dwindle and purchasing power plunges, Venezuelans increasingly turn to Bitcoin. With low electricity costs, Venezuela attracts Bitcoin miners earning $12 to $15 per day, 6 times the minimum wage. El Salvador, which adopted Bitcoin as an official currency in 2021, holds over $400 million in Bitcoin. Their government policies generated Bitcoin revenue, including a citizenship program, local commerce, Bitcoin conversion, mining, and government service revenue, all incentivizing widespread Bitcoin adoption. Bitcoin protects assets. Bitcoin fixes this. Everything seems perfect in today's world. But what if a catastrophe strikes, causing a global internet blackout? Living without the internet today is unthinkable. Businesses rely on the internet to function, and without it, thousands of people would go crazy. But let's suppose something happens to the global internet network. What happens to the bitcoins in your wallet? Do you lose all your money? First of all, if the world's internet goes down, the banking system would go down too. Remember that Venmo transfer you sent to someone? Yeah, it also needs the internet. You wouldn't be able to make transactions through others anymore. But here's the incredible part. You can still transfer bitcoins even without an internet connection. Actually, the internet is just one way to transfer bitcoins. There are other options, though they might require a bit more effort. It's worth noting that these options are useful in emergencies or in remote regions without internet access. SMS transactions. You can send and receive Bitcoin using text messages through a specialized service. One such service is Machankura, developed by a South African developer, which already has thousands of transactions. And you don't need the latest smartphone for these transactions to work. Radio transactions. Some Bitcoin enthusiasts have explored using radio technology, like shortwave radios, for Bitcoin transactions. This approach requires specialized hardware and has limited range and capacity. Satellite transactions. There are ongoing projects aiming to provide Bitcoin network access via satellites, allowing Bitcoin transactions to be transmitted and received via satellite connections. During the 2020 Blockchain Summit, a company called Blockstream Satellite sent $100 transactions to an astronaut on the International Space Station.
Hey, look.
Oh, right there.
First transaction.
Nice. History is made.
Oh my
Right
goodness.
there.
Oh.
That's it.
Bitcoin doesn't only rely on an internet connection, though it's much easier to use the network when connected. But internet connectivity comes with its own set of problems. Millions of hacks occur daily on the internet. In 2022, from January to June, over $2 billion was lost due to hacks and exploiting projects, surpassing the total for 2021. This is a daily danger that Web3 has and users need to deal with. But when it comes to the Bitcoin network, the situation is a bit different. The Bitcoin developer community is continually reviewing and updating the protocol to fix any vulnerabilities or flaws that may arise. The Bitcoin network is interconnected. That's why it's called blockchain. Each new block that's created depends on the information from the previous block. Among this information are the current block's hash and the previous block's hash. This means that if someone wanted to hack the Bitcoin network, they would have to go back to the Genesis blocks, change the block's hash, and keep changing hashes until they reach the current block. This attack is known as 51% attack. A 51% attack occurs when a single computer controls over 50% of the network's processing power. This would give them control over most blocks added to the blockchain and allow them to perform malicious activities like reversing confirmed transactions or preventing new transactions from being confirmed. Although not impossible, this attack is highly unlikely for several reasons. First, cost. For this attack to work, the hacker would need massive processing power, requiring immense computational resources and costs for hardware and electricity. And even then, success isn't guaranteed.
Bitcoin has achieved a level of computing that no single nation state can overthrow it through computation alone. The effort to do so would require a massive covert operation of chip fabrication, then the coordinated assault that would give them dominance over the next block for 10 minutes until we kick those bastards off the network, rework the protocol around them. They would be revealed, they would have lost $1 billion doing this, and all they got to do was one double spend.
It would be smarter to use all that money to build mining rigs and receive network rewards. To give an idea, if a hacker wanted to attempt this attack on the Bitcoin network, it's estimated that you would need to spend 93 Bitcoins per hour. And even then, there's no guarantee they would gain total network control. Second, Bitcoin devaluation. Even if this attack were successful, the hacker would end up with many Bitcoins, would almost become worthless, as people's trust in the network would be affected. In other words, a 51% attack might have been possible in Bitcoin's early years. But now, 15 years later, it's nearly impossible because the network has reached a computational level where the costs of performing such an attack far exceeds the rewards the hacker would receive. And if by chance this were to happen one day, the community would create a fork of Bitcoin and everyone would migrate to this new decentralized fork. Or would you prefer to stay on a fork controlled by a government? After all this time, Bitcoin isn't just being discussed in the internet communities or nerd groups. The most important people in the world are also keeping an eye on it.
Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done.
Until 2024, most people viewed Bitcoin as something on the fringe, thinking no one could explain how it worked and that it was just a collective delirium, a fad that would soon fade away. And you can understand some of these folks since Bitcoin has been heavily used and will continue to be used for scams. Moreover, hearing that the digital currency could become the world's most used currency, surpassing the dollar, is a bit hard to believe. But what seemed like an ordinary Wednesday turned out to be the day many people changed their views on Bitcoin. Or didn't. This is a significant date for the entire community, the entire blockchain, and all those who believe in the centralized money and transaction anonymity. Wednesday, January 10th, 2024 will be remembered as the day the SEC approved the first Bitcoin ETF.
And for the first time, you can invest in Bitcoin ETFs.
The SEC approving 11 spot Bitcoin ETFs, a landmark decision for the industry.
The most historically significant thing that's ever happened to Bitcoin just happened. A spot Bitcoin ETF was finally approved.
This approval caused many who were against or unfamiliar with Bitcoin to start seeking and understanding more about digital currency. The ETF is a crucial milestone because many institutional investors avoided Bitcoin due to volatility, hack risks, and lack of regulation. This will open the door for institutional investors into the crypto world, including Ethereum, Solana, and other altcoins, which are also being considered for ETFs. After this approval, purchasing Bitcoin is much easier. It can be done just like buying stocks on the traditional stock exchange. They don't need to create accounts with exchanges like Binance or Coinbase. Bitcoin hit a low during the most recent bear market at 15,500 in 2022. On the day that the ETF was released, the price was $46,000. Today, not just because of the ETF, but also the return of the bull run and the halving, Bitcoin is currently worth $100,000. The $100,000 mark no longer seems so out of reach. On the contrary, in a few years, $100,000 will be bear market price for Bitcoin. Bitcoin can be compared to a black hole. Let me explain. The main investments we have today are stocks, oil, gold, and real estate, right? When it comes to investments, people always look for the best. And in this case, it's none of these four. Today's best investment is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is brilliant.
Bitcoin is the world's first cryptocurrency
that will cure half the problems in the world.
And it works because of the world's first public blockchain network.
Over time, Bitcoin will absorb liquidity from all these markets. Think about it. Why would I use my money to buy a house which is fixed and can't be moved, worrying about inflation, when I can buy Bitcoin, take it anywhere in the world and see way more appreciation over time?
And so Bitcoin is the most certain form of money we've ever had.
The lesson of Bitcoin is the best asset. There is no second best asset. Buy Bitcoin, keep buying Bitcoin, don't sell the Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is the revolution we needed. Fiat money is outdated. It loses value over time, and we have to work more and more each month just to maintain a mediocre life, forced to worry about what the government does or doesn't do. After the end of the gold standard, fiat money is just an illusion.
And then there's government money, which is fiat currency, which is the dollar, the yen, the peso, the euro, the yuan. Fake. And everybody's working hard for it. It's like eating fake food or drinking fake water. That's why people are getting sick financially, because they're working for fake money.
Speaking of standards, Bitcoin also has one. But it's not gold and it can't be changed if the government decides to hold a meeting to change economic plans. Bitcoin's standard is very different. Gold can be compared to Bitcoin. Both are scarce, hard to obtain, and many people believe they serve as a wealth reserves. But they also have many differences. Gold can still be found in nature. Bitcoin will never have more than 21 million coins. It's not easy to transport gold. It's heavy and requires a lot of space to store. With Bitcoin, you only need 12 words stored in your head. The main difference is that Bitcoin doesn't dissipate energy. Money is energy, and Bitcoin is a perfect engineering marvel. Let me explain. Imagine you are on a grassy farm with several cattle. This grass needs sunlight every single day for photosynthesis. Plants have a pigment called chlorophyll, which absorbs sunlight's energy. During photosynthesis, glucose is produced, which is an energy source for growth, reproduction, and other metabolic functions. When the cattle eat the grass, it's used as energy. The same energy is passed on to each of us when we eat that juicy steak. This steak we just ate goes into our stomach, where enzymes and acids help break down the proteins into amino acids. Our intestines work to send these amino acids, along with other nutrients like fat and vitamins, into our blood, used as energy to get us through the day. After 30 days eating, working, and spending the energy the universe gave us, we receive a piece of paper. That's money. All your energy and your time during 30 days, it's right here in this piece of paper. The big problem with all this is that, like energy, our money also dissipates. Leaks like a broken pipe. No one would ever get on a boat with a hole, because sooner or later it will sink. Now, applying this knowledge to money, why would you leave your money in dollars or any other fiat currency? Since the end of the gold standard, our money has been losing value every single day. We have to work 250% more to have the same purchasing power we had just a few decades ago. Before the end of the gold standard, Americans worked an average of 2.4 years to buy a house. Nowadays, they need to work almost 7 years. And if that's not enough, you have to work much more. While property prices have skyrocketed during these years and your salary remains basically the same, in reality, you need to work an extra 5 more years just to buy a house, all because of inflation, the devaluation of the money you have saved. If you wouldn't get on a boat with holes or have a broken pipe in your house, why leave your money in dollars? The only hole-free boat we know is Bitcoin. It has no leaks. It has the perfect engineering that stores energy. Bitcoin needs energy to be mined. The difference between Bitcoin and the salary we get every month is that Bitcoin doesn't lose its energy, its value. All the computational energy that goes into Bitcoin also comes out in the same amount. The only way this energy would come out in different amounts is if Bitcoin continues to create new tokens over time. But that doesn't happen. Think of money. The Fed prints new money every single day. Gold increases in circulations over time too, which averages 2% per year, much less than money. However, many gold mines still exist, including unexplored ones. In contrast, Bitcoin has a total of 21 million coins, which will never, ever change. The inflation rate of Bitcoin is a hot topic. After the fourth halving, the reward for mining each block decreased from 6.25 Bitcoins to just 3.125 Bitcoins. This drastic reduction has significantly slowed down the creation of new Bitcoins, from 900 to 450 Bitcoins per day, resulting in an inflation rate of 0.85%, which in comparison to gold at 2.3% rate makes it much more scarce. Why has gold always been considered a better store of value than silver, for example? Due to its lower inflation rate over time, which is reflected in its higher stock-to-flow ratio, a measure indicating the scarcity and durability of a commodity relative to its annual production. Throughout history, silver is better than copper, gold is better than silver, and Bitcoin is better than gold. Bitcoin has no dissipation. That's why it's considered a perfect engineered marvel. If there is a better asset than any other asset, all goods and assets will convert to that currency. Bitcoin is truly an apex predator and will become the world's currency. The currency that everyone will store as a wealth reserve. Imagining 85 years from now, in 2109, all fiat currencies have collapsed. Dollar, euro, or yen no longer exist. Countries and nations have crumbled. But unlike the world we live in today, people have one less worry: the protection of their money. Families who choose to increase their Bitcoin holdings over time are safe. They have complete control over every cent, sats, that appears on their phone screens. The corruption and greed of rulers no longer affect people's pocket, as they alone have control over their money. While today nations wage wars, causing millions of innocent soldiers to lose their lives, all for a piece of land, in 100 years, everyone will live happily. Agriculture will completely change. Pesticides and toxins will no longer be used. Education has finally evolved, and children no longer need to be locked in a classroom for 17 years learning the same things. Now, each student can choose what to study and specialize in, following a completely personalized curriculum. Now everyone can focus on doing what they love. Wealth is no longer measured by the amount of money people have stored, but by the quality of life, health, and happiness of their families. In the year 2109, exactly 100 years after the appearance of Bitcoin, which no one will ever know who created, but which completely changed the history. There are no more economic collapses. Society is sustainable and people live in a total harmony with nature and animals. In 2024, this is just a dream. But everyone who is fighting for Bitcoin's decentralization to be accepted by all, so that our children and grandchildren can live this dream in the future. Bitcoin is not just a currency. Bitcoin is the hope of millions of families around the world, of future generations who will live on Earth, of animals, of nature. But above all, Bitcoin is the hope our world needs to change the course we are on. Fix the money, fix the world. Bitcoin is hope.
Happens is that no one can take Bitcoin away from me, and I'm very happy about it. It's really good.
In the short term, this will generate jobs and help provide financial inclusion to thousands outside the formal economy. And in the medium and long term, we hope that this small decision can help us push humanity at least a tiny bit into the right direction.
The United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world, and we'll get it done.
Whoever is Satoshi Nakamoto, good job for making Bitcoin.